Hey everyone, Cal from Wise Guys Tutoring, back with part 4 of the EmSAT Math Exam 2022 questions. So we'll call it practice questions number 4. I'll try to give you a background and put up links to other questions that you know are the same topic so you can get a full understanding of what's going on. And obviously we'll be solving 5 questions today. So without further ado, let's do the first one. It says the tree diagram shows the composition of a box of used color markers in a classroom. There are 2 red markers, 4 red markers, and 6 blue markers. Now, 1/2 of the red markers have been dried out. 25% of the green markers are dry, and 50% of the blue markers are dry. That's a lot of dry markers. What is the approximate probability that a marker randomly selected from the box will be dried out? So when do we use a tree? We use a tree for compound events, like compound probabilities. So we have to consider, first of all, when you're picking a marker, what's the probability that it's red or green or blue? And secondly, we have to check, is it dry or not? Let's start with the probability that it's either red or green or blue. Now, we've been told that there are 2 red markers and there are 4 green markers and there are 6 blue markers. So in total, I know there's 12 markers, right? So this is the red, green, and blue. I'll use light blue to differentiate. Now, in simple probabilities, all you have to do is take the favorable outcome. For example, if I'm asking what's the probability of picking a red marker, that means I have to do 2. The favorable outcomes is 2 divided by the total outcomes, which is 12. So in this case, the probability here is going to be 2 over 12 for red. Similarly, it'll be 4 over 12 for green, and it'll be 6 over 12 for blue. And I want to stop here to tell you that there's a very easy check when it comes to probability trees. So for each group of branches, each cluster that's coming out of the same point, the probabilities must add up to 1. So you have 2 out of 12 plus 4 out of 12 plus 6 out of 12. That's 12 out of 12. That's 1. So we've done this correctly, at least in terms of not missing any probabilities. There are no other possibilities. There's only red, green, and blue, right? So when you add up their probabilities, it must equal to 1. It's going to be the same thing here. When we add up these two branches of this cluster coming out of the same point, it must add up to 1. And these 2 must add up to 1. These 2 as well. Okay, so now we got the probability of each marker. So let's move on to see if it's dry or not. Now here it says 1/2 of the red markers have dried out. Now that means that 1/2 is the probability that the one I chose will be dry. And since there's only 2 possibilities, dry or not dry, and we know that they must equal to 1, then the not dry will be 1 minus 1/2. And this is just equal to 1/2. So the probability of it being not dry is 1/2. Remember, together they have to equal to 1. Now let's try this green color. So it says 25% of the green markers are dry. So if 25% of the green markers are dry, I don't know if you can turn this into a fraction. I'll show you what to do. If you want it as a decimal, you simply divide by 100. So you get 0.25. And if you want this to be a fraction, you can also say that 25% means 25 over 100. And if we simplify that a little bit, you get 1 over 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put that the dry ones are 1 over 4. That's the probability, 25%. Now remember, 1 minus that one, because together they have to equal to 1. So if this is 1/4, I can do 1 minus 1/4 to get the not dry. And that's 3 over 4. 3/4 and 1/4, now together they're 1. We'll do the same thing here. It says 50% of the blue markers are dry. So 50%, again, we can use this trick. We can say 50%, that's 50 over 100. And if I simplify that, I get 1/2, just 1 over 2. So if half of them are dry, as we saw earlier, 1 minus 1/2. If half are dry, that means half are not dry. Okay, so now we've done the bulk of the work because we put the probabilities of each branch. Now let's see what they want to know. What is the approximate probability that a marker randomly selected from the box will be dried out? So this is where it comes to each branch. So here we have red dry, here we have red not dry, and we have green dry and green not dry. Okay, so I'll do them all. So you put B not dry. Okay, how do I calculate the probability of each branch? Well, this is what you do. You have to take the probability of each branch along that path and multiply it. So if I want the probability of red and dry, then I have to multiply the probabilities along its branch. Let me give myself a little bit of room. I kept it there a little bit smaller. So as I was saying, if you want to do the probabilities, then you say probability of red and dry, and you got to multiply the probabilities along the branch. So this is 2 over 12 times 1/2. So the probability here will be 1/12. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing for green and dry, right? So if we want green and dry, what you have to do is multiply the probabilities of the branches along that path. In this case, probability of green and dry will be 4 over 12, pardon me, times 1 over 4. And again, this is 1 over 12. Okay. Here's another one. You can have blue and dry. So we have to get the probabilities along the branches. We multiply those and we'll get blue and dry. So here's blue dry. We get 6 over 12 and then 1 over 2. And if you punch this in, you'll get that this is 1/4. Okay, so now we've established whenever you have, two conditions like red and dry, you have to multiply the probabilities. Green and dry, we multiply the probabilities. So whenever you see and in probability and stats, and implies you need to multiply. But when we have 3 conditions now, right, 3 paths that meet our condition, because it says what marker, what is the probability the marker will be dry. So it could be red and dry, green and dry, or blue and dry. So whenever you see or, that means you need to add their probabilities, okay? Because all 3 of them match my condition of being dry. This one, or that one, or that one. So that increases my chances. And if we add all 3 of these, you punch it in, you're going to get 5 over 12. And as a decimal, this is 0.416 recurring, which if you're, they only take 3 decimals. If you're going to round off, you get 417, meaning the answer is B. So the main takeaway here is how to do the tree, obviously. You put the probabilities on the branches, outcomes go on the end. Each cluster coming out of one same point must add up to 1. So that's how if they give me 1, I can figure out the other whenever there's 2, right? Or if they give me 2, I can figure out the third. Second thing is when you're finding the probability of each end of the branch, you multiply the branches. Okay, if there are multiple branches that meet my condition, in that case I have to add their probabilities. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's move on to the next question. Here we have Saeed has 12,000 dirhams invested in a bank account modeled by the function shown below, where P of n is the value of his savings, I guess, in dirhams after n month. Saif, so they changed his name. Saif's debt is modeled by the function Qn equals 100n, where Q of n is the value of debt in dirhams after n months. So again, n is month, and it's dirhams again. After n months, which function represents Saif's net worth Rn? Okay, so it's not very difficult. Basically, what's your net worth? Your net worth is the amount of money you have, which for us we know is P of n. And you have to subtract his debt, right? Because his debt is what he owes. He has to pay that. So this is going to be money coming out of his account. So if you want to know his net worth, you have to subtract whatever he's paying, whatever he owes, minus whatever he has or whatever he's making. So it's just P of n minus Q of n, right? This one is his revenue or of his income or his account, how much money he has. And this one is how much he has to pay. So Rn is just P of n, which is 12,000, they gave it to you there, times 1.002 to the power of n, minus 100n, which is the debt. So it's just gonna be B. This is a very simple question, but I'll take the opportunity to kind of show you what this part is, okay? Because this is a percent increase or compound interest kind of formula. The formula is generally A equals P1 plus the rate to the power of t. And the way this works is this one is your final amount, let's call it. So it's the amount of money you have after your initial amount has grown or decreased. This here we call it the principal, which is the initial amount. So initial amount, that means the amount you had in the beginning. Okay. R is probably the most important part. It's the rate. And you have to put it, let's say rate per year. That's the standard equation. And you put it as a decimal, not as a percentage. Okay, that's very important. And T, you may have figured, is the amount of years. So it's the time. Okay. In this case, this equation is a little bit strange because it's in months, not years, but that's okay. There's another formula for that, but we don't need to get into it now. We'll do another question on that in another video. Let's move on to the next question. Here it says a rectangle is 3.79 meters wide and has a perimeter of 24.50 meters, I assume. Which of the following is the length of the diagonal of this rectangle to the nearest tenth? So whenever you got these word problems, you gotta draw a diagram. It helps tremendously. So here's what I'm gonna do. Here's a rectangle, right? And they've given me that it is 3.79 meters wide. 3.79 meters on that side. And since this is a rectangle, this side will be the exact same. Okay? Also, since it's a rectangle, I know that this long side, the length here, let's call it x since I don't know what it is, will be the same on both sides. Okay? And they've given me that the perimeter equals 24.50. Now, the perimeter is calculated as the sum of all the sides. So it would be width plus length plus width plus length, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know what the widths are. It's 3.79. Length, let's call it x. I got another 3.79 and I got another length of x. And if I add these up, you know, you put the x's together, that's 2x, and you put 3.79 plus 3.79, and this is 7.58. Okay? So equating those two, we know the perimeter is 24.50, and it also equals 2x plus 7.58. So I can solve for my length x, right? Hopefully you're okay now solving these two-step equations. So I'll remove the third wheel first. There we go. Cancels on that side. And here I'm left with 16.92 equals 2x. And then to get the x all alone, I divide by 2 on both sides. So that'll get me x equals 8.46 meters. So now I know the length of this. So why don't we put it here? X is 8.46 on both sides, obviously. And now we ask ourselves, have we answered the question? It says, which of the following is the length of the diagonal of this rectangle? So we have not, because the diagonal is this length from corner to corner. That's the diagonal, the orange line. So allow me to again redraw this. Let me draw the triangle. So say that's the diagonal. I got this side, which is actually the width, and this side, which is actually the length. And this is a rectangle, right? So it's got all right angles. It's all 90-degree corners. So if this is 3.79 and this is 8.46, hopefully you remember your Pythagorean theorem. It says that A, let's call this one A, we'll call that side B, and the hypotenuse here will be C. So what we have to do is say A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And we'll replace these numbers and we'll be able to solve for C. So A squared, that means 8.46 squared plus 3.79 squared equals C squared. Adding those two, you get 85.9357 equals C squared. And if I want to get C all alone, I do square root on both sides because that undoes the square. And finally, we'll get our answer, which is C equals 9.27, which to one decimal place will be 9.3 meters. So our answer will be C. Okay, let's move on to the next one. It says a triangle has lengths listed below. Which expression represents the perimeter in centimeters of this triangle? Remember, we already talked about this. The perimeter is the sum of all the sides. So we can call this one side A, we can call this one side B, and that one side C. So the perimeter will just be the sum of all three sides. So let's substitute this in. If I say A, it says 5.5x plus 6.2y, and side B is 4.3x plus 8.3z, and C is 1.6z minus 5.1y. So now what we have to do is add these, but we can't add x's and y's together, and we can't add x's and z. So it's a good time to talk about like terms. Okay, we can only group like terms, and when we say like terms, basically what that means in the most layman terms I can, it's the same letters and same exponent. Okay, you cannot add any variable that has different exponent. For example, x squared plus 2x squared, that's fine, you can add them, that's 3x squared. But x squared plus 2x, you can't add them because they have different exponent. Similarly, xy plus 2xy, that's 3xy. But x squared y plus 2y squared or something, you cannot add them because they have different exponents. Even if there's an x, they have different exponents. Okay, so here what we're going to do is we're going to group the like terms, and this is very easily done by either, I have a lot of colors, but even if you don't have colors, you can, for example, circle the x's. So here's some x's, here's some x's. You can put like squares around the y's, and it's very important that you take the sign with it, because this is a plus 6.2, whereas this one is a negative 5.1, right? We got the z's here, so why don't we use like a, I don't know, triangle for the z's. Okay, there you go. Here's one, here's the other. So now we join them together. The x's together, 5.5 plus 4.3, that just gives you 9.8x. And the y's, you have 6.2 minus 5.1, right? So you have to subtract, but in the end that gives you 1.1y. If you have 8.3 and 1.6, then this is going to give us 9.9z. And if we check our answers, we can see that this is going to be A. All right. Pretty straightforward questions. Just remember how to add you can only add like terms, and remember what makes like terms. Got to be the same exact letters, and they have to have the exact same exponents. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, this is another straightforward question. It says function f of x is given below. F of x equals x cubed plus 2x. What is the value of f minus 2 plus 2f of minus 1? Whenever you see this notation, f of minus 2, what they mean is you want to take this same expression here, and wherever your eyes see an x, we're going to put a negative 2 instead. So for the first part here, let's do this part first. F of minus 2 means instead of x, I'm going to put minus 2. And I advise you to use brackets, especially when there's a negative, just to be sure you're going to do the right thing. So here is minus 2. So I've replaced these two x's with negative 2, right? That's what this notation means. It means whatever you're putting in here, if they say f of minus 2 or f of minus 1, you just replace x, every x, with that number, okay? Now let's calculate this. Minus 2 cubed is minus 8. Be very careful putting this in your calculator, because a lot of students will put minus 2 cubed with no brackets, and that's going to give you 2 cubed, which is 8, and then it's going to give you a minus after it. So in this case, it does give you the right answer, okay? But sometimes you get minus 2 squared, okay? And this is supposed to give you 4, positive 4. But if you put it in your calculator as minus 2 squared, you'll get the wrong answer of minus 4, because it'll do 2 squared first and then it'll tack on a minus. So please be careful putting it in your calculator. So it's minus 8 plus 2 minus 2, that's minus 4. Of course, we know that minus 8 plus minus 4 is just minus 8 minus 4, and this is negative 12. Let's do the same thing here. Instead of 2 times f of minus 1, let's just do f of minus 1 first, and then we'll multiply it by 2. So I'm going to do the same thing, right? Wherever our eyes see x, we're going to put minus 1 instead. Minus 1 cubed is minus 1 times itself 3 times. It's minus 1. 2 times minus 1 is minus 2. Of course, plus minus 2, that just means minus 2, and that's negative 3. But we don't have f of minus 1. They want us to do 2 times that. So we'll just do 2 times minus 3, and that gives me minus 6. So if I come here and I put that in this expression, what is the value of f of minus 2? That's negative 12 plus negative 6, which again is minus 12 minus 6, which is negative 18. Thus, the answer is B. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. As usual, please subscribe to the channel and make sure you like the video. If you have any comments, suggestions, questions, leave them for me below. I'm always happy to interact with you guys. I also teach a group online EmSAT Math workshop. So if you're interested in that, make sure you DM me on Instagram at WiseGuysUAE. And yeah, we'll talk soon. I'll see you guys in the next video.